from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Monday night edition of the program. Hope you had a great weekend. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call. 833-482-5337-8334 Valdez. And a few things I want to get to. I mean, we have a big show for you tonight. We're going to talk about the Alabama Supreme Court decision on abortion, President Trump's reaction to that, the reaction of conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, and progressives across the country. The media has reacted. Everybody's freaking out about it. We're going to get to the bottom of that in a little bit. We're also going to talk about the Vatican. The Vatican has come out and made an official statement, taken an official position against what the left calls a gender-affirming care, and we call genital mutilation, right? Sex change surgeries for minors. They've come out on that, and we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to get into what is going on with the FBI coming after people for notifications, social media posts, and in other words, trying to chill the free speech of American citizens. We're definitely going to dig into that a little bit. And the Israeli Defense Forces have regrouped and switched gears in Gaza, pushing most of their troops to Rafah and bringing a good majority of them home. So that troop reduction, we're going to discuss that as well. Now, I want to get to a couple of things that happened over the weekend that I think are important. Let me see. Which is the first thing I want to talk about here? There's a lot. But one of the things that I wanted to make mention of was this fundraising record that was shattered by former President Trump. Big deal. Broke all sorts of records. I think before it even kicked off, it had already raised $50 million, which clearly doubled, almost nearly tripling the $26 million event that President Biden had at Radio City Music Hall last week. I think that was the one with Lizzo, right, where he skipped the police officer's funeral saying he wasn't invited. Anyway, and again, I saw them ask Governor Hochul to leave. I don't know if they would have asked President Biden to leave or not. So maybe he was, trying to spare himself the embarrassment. I still think, it's a gesture when the presidential motorcade rolls up and maybe he wants to present them with a flag or, do you really turn somebody away like that? Maybe you do. I don't know. But I think it would, at least it would have been on them, not on him. He would have been like, look, I tried to show up. I had other engagements in town. I had other plans, but I wanted to make sure I said what's up to the family. How you guys doing? And here, pay my respects. And that didn't happen. Anyway, President Trump, right? So he had this fundraiser at his resort in Palm Beach, Florida, Mar-a-Lago, beautiful place. And John Paulson, a big hedge fund guy, was the host of the event. Save America PAC, the PAC that supports President Trump's candidacy, and the RNC, Republican National Committee, as well as the Florida GOP, and let me see who else. I think that was it. It was a joint fundraiser, but yeah, this was the biggest fundraiser in American history, as I'm reading here, and good for them. And it goes to show that Americans are interested in supporting the campaign of President Donald Trump. Now, some people might say that these were all high-dollar donors, and this doesn't represent all of Americans, that it only represents the billionaire class that's dying to get their billionaire tax cuts. And if they don't, they're afraid that dictator Trump will slash them. I think that's not true, clearly. I think it's a flawed concept, right? To think that the only reason people that are wealthy are supporting President Trump is because they can get a tax cut. I think they should get tax cuts, right? Think about every time you've gotten a tax cut, I know what I do. I know I save a little, I spend a little, If you're already planning a trip, maybe a few more days. If you're already planning a trip and you haven't booked it yet, maybe you book it to a nicer place, nicer hotel. Right? Everybody wants to live it up one way or another. And of course, you want to save and help your family and do whatever. So that's the story there. Kudos to Lara Trump, the new RNC chair as well from North Carolina, Chairman Whatley, and President Trump for an amazing job, and everybody involved in the host committee there. Really, really a remarkable thing to have shattered fundraising records. But again, because he's Trump, it doesn't really count, right? It's because he's Trump. It's, he's not, he's not the best guy. He's not a great guy. He's a bad guy. Now, there was another funny story here I wanted to talk about, but I don't see it. Oh, the other big story that was going all over the place today is the solar eclipse. Now, what's funny about this one to me is I was one of those people, right? I was running some errands, and I had my sunroof open. I kept looking out the window, and at one point, it seemed a little cloudier than normal, but I totally missed this thing. I did not get to see the actual moon cross in front of the sun and everything go dark. I didn't see it at all, and I was looking for it. Every time I had a chance, I would stop. I'd go to the car. I'd look around. Minutes to go. I remember it was like 3 minutes. I stood out there looking. I was driving. I had my daughter looking out the window. Everybody was looking, and I didn't see anything. Meanwhile, I see people all over social media posting the coolest pictures. They saw this. They saw that. They had cool glasses. I didn't see any of that stuff. I feel so incredibly left out. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because I know many of my colleagues in conservative commentary today have been making fun of those people. They're making fun of me for trying to see this eclipse. And I remember President Trump back in 2017 when we had the last eclipse. I remember him putting on his cool shades, standing out over the ellipse at the White House with the First Lady, looking up and observing and taking it in. Nobody was making fun of him, but yet scores of people who are trying to see it today, I keep hearing people make fun of them. So I don't know. I don't think it's funny, and I don't think it's fair. I tried to watch it, and I missed it. And for anybody who did get to see it, kudos to you. You guys got the cool social media pick of the day. Anyway, let me see. What else do we have here? We got the Trump statement on abortion. That's coming right up, straight ahead. We've also got the DOJ. This is a big story. I'm going to get into this a little bit later or tomorrow, maybe in depth. But the DOJ is refusing to turn over President Biden's recorded interview with special counsel Robert Hur. This is the one where he asks him about the death of his son, Beau, and what he remembers about anything, and where he concluded that Biden was a feeble old man that is unfit for trial, right? And that he would make a bad witness or whatever. And I would love to hear that. I'd love to hear the stumbling and, without prep, without rehearsal, without aides, without anybody being able to step in, I guess maybe minus his lawyer, the White House counsel or a personal lawyer. But yeah, I'd be very curious. And as my president, I think, he has a duty to release that, no? If not, I could at least pretend he has a duty and just start claiming that like the left does. When they pretend presidents have no rights and no privileges to any privileged information. Anyway. We're going to get into a bunch of stuff tonight. Again, the number 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue our conversation. And, of course, the Alabama Supreme Court issued a decision today that dealt with IVF and abortion, and President Trump weighed in on his thoughts on that and has been getting both accolades and backlash from all over the place, from the right, from the left, from everywhere in between. And, of course, abortion is always a very hot-button issue. And we have the audio of President Trump. Then I want to bring in Father Frank Pavone from Priests for Life for his reaction to the president's statement. Listen to this.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith. Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country and vote. So important to vote.
So President Trump has remained, I think, pretty consistent on his position that the federal government should not be involved in creating either a ban and or involved in abortion at all, and that these are decisions that should be left up to the states and, of course, up to each and every individual person and according to their faith. Now, some people appreciate this. Some people don't appreciate it. I want to get the opinion of a pro-life leader ordained back in 1988. He's the national co-chair of Pro-Life Voices for Trump, the director of Priests for Life. You know him as Father Frank Pavone. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich, it's so good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Amen, sir. Thank you for joining us. So when you hear this response from President Trump, there are some saying that he's punted, that he didn't go far enough. Others are saying that he did the right thing. Others saying he's pandering to an electorate amongst the Republican Party that is not as pro-life as it once was. What are your thoughts?
I think President Trump is hitting it just right as a candidate for the presidency. And I say that because, I've worked with his team since he first announced in 2015 as an advisor on pro-life issues. And I've been very, very privileged to be part of that dynamic. And I've always been convinced, I was told from day one, he'll do everything that past pro-life presidents have done and more. Those were the exact words said to me. And he proved that to be the case. I expect that President Trump, and I know that he will in a second term, be just as vigorously pro-life as he was in the first term. There was no policy or accomplishment that he achieved in the first term that he has said now was a mistake or that he would not do again. He gave us pro-life judges. He'll do that again. He diverted money away from the baby killing industry. He'll do that again. And he'll advocate for the unborn in numerous ways. I think he hit it just right today as a candidate for president. And what I mean is, I don't expect him to do my job. You know, Rich, I'm a full-time pro-life leader. There are many others as well. We've got a big, big movement. In fact, it's the biggest human rights movement in American history. And it's the pro-life movement's job to persuade the American public of a very simple truth. Government does not have the authority to permit the killing of a baby. It's just not right. It can never be right. There can never be any exception to that. I mean, it would be like saying that your life and mine will be protected in Mississippi, but not in New York, you know, or that will be protected up until we're 75, but not beyond. Life, and you know what? President Trump knows that. But it's not his job as president to be going around, you know, giving pro-life speeches. It's his job to unite the country. And in my statement on this, my statement today on his statement, you know, Rich, I made the comparison to the founding of our country. When our founders adopted the Constitution, the big debate, of course, was slavery. And, you know, some people today will say, oh, you know, they didn't go far enough in why didn't they just, you know, put in the Constitution that there can be no slavery, and some think, of course, that the problem is in the other direction. But the founders knew something. They could not get the Constitution ratified if they put into it explicitly a ban on slavery. So what did they do instead? Got it ratified. It wasn't a pro-slavery document either, but they got it ratified, and they gave us a mechanism of government, which ultimately was the tool to eradicate and abolish slavery. I think President Trump is in a similar position right now. He knows the country is divided on abortion. If a state, like we have 14 states protecting the unborn throughout pregnancy, wants to do that, he's saying, hey, that's a great thing. That's as it should be. The people should decide. But he knows that right now, as a candidate for president, he can't say to the nation, hey, folks, we're going to ban all abortion. Because then what's going to happen is this. The Democrats will be more likely to win. Then what? Well, not just that they're pro-abortion, but they'll get rid of freedom of speech, religion, free and fair elections. They are on a path, the Democrats, to destroy the country itself. So then where would our tools be then to bring about an end to abortion? So with all of that in mind, people know where I stand on abortion. They know where the Catholic Church stands, where the pro-life movement stands. But President Trump is trying to be the president again, and I think he will be. And I think he's doing taking the right approach.
Yeah, I agree. Now, he also took some heat recently on IVF, and we don't have a ton of time, but I'd like to get your thoughts on that, because some people were saying, look, this is, the process of IVF is not an appropriate one. Others saying you're taking away one's opportunity to potentially have a baby. Where do you land on that?
Well, there's two questions. I mean, one is a public policy question. One is a moral question. On public policy, this is interesting. President Trump is, again, taking the position of saying life is a beautiful thing. We want to help people to have babies when they want to have babies. And I think that represents, again, a policy in the right direction. Now, when you get into the moral details, is IVF morally acceptable? The Catholic Church says no, not because life isn't sacred, but simply because children are a gift. They can neither be discarded nor demanded. They can only be received, accepted from God. And so, to make a child the result of a scientific intervention, we don't believe is morally consistent. But that doesn't mean that now we're going to make it a political issue or that it's got to be a public policy issue. The interesting thing here is that I think the left wants the argument to be there, just like they want the argument in on the cases of abortion in the 7th, 8th, 9th month of pregnancy, viable babies, then they know the public is not with them on that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Folks, we're on with Father Frank Pavone. You know him as the National Director of Priests for Life. He's part of the Trump team, Pro-Life Voices for Trump. He's the director there. He's on YouTube, and he's our guest, and we're going to continue with him straight ahead. I want to make sure you give him a follow on X or whatever platform you like to use. I like Truth Social, FR Frank Pavone, at FR Frank Pavone is his handle. Make sure you give him a follow. And endabortion.us is the website. Father Frank Pavone, stick with me. We're coming right back. We're going to discuss the Vatican weighing in on transgender surgeries, genital mutilation, what the left likes to call gender-affirming care. We're going to get into that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our discussion with Father Frank Pavone. And the Vatican has released a document criticizing gender theory, transgender surgery, and surrogacy as affronts to human dignity. The quote from the document, which is in Latin, says it's dignitas infinita, or Latin for infinite dignity. And that's what's being violated here. Listen to the report.
This document with the Latin title Dignitas Infinita, or Infinite Dignity, has been 5 years in the making and has been personally approved by Pope Francis himself. Just to run you through some of the key statements in this very long document from the office that oversees doctrine within the Vatican. When it comes to gender theory, the Vatican is saying that wanting self-determination, so wanting to choose your own gender, amounts to a concession to the age-old temptation to make oneself God. This document also weighs in specifically on sex changes. It says that any sex change risks threatening the unique dignity the person has received from the moment of conception. So to paraphrase that, what the Vatican is saying is that your gender, your sex, is set at the moment of conception, rather than as gender ideology states that gender can be something much more fluid and not preset by the sexual organs that you are born with. This document also reiterates some of the previous statements and positions that we've seen from the Catholic Church, coming out very strongly against abortion as well as surrogate pregnancy. Giles Gibson, Scripps News, Rome.
So there you've got the report from Rome. And I'm, as a now Protestant that was raised Catholic, I'm thrilled to hear this news because I feel like the church was not as taking as strong of a position on this. But maybe I'm wrong. Father Frank, what do you say?
Well, the Pope had to reaffirm what has been the church teaching all along. I mean, that is his job after all. And yes, it is refreshing for many people to hear this really nothing new here, restatement of what Catholic teaching is. But that's, it's also the teaching of science. It's also, it gets to the most fundamental questions too. Really, it comes down to who are we as human beings and whose are we? Where do we come from? And what the Pope is saying, in other words, is, we come from God. We belong to him. And there's a fundamental truth written in the human body that you are a man, I am a man, a woman is a woman. And, I've been saying to people, look, how come we're at a point today where we can't say a man is a man or a woman is a woman? Maybe it's because for 50 years we've been saying a baby's not a baby. You deny that the baby in the womb is a baby, and then you can deny anything because it's just biological reality. And accepting that is part of accepting God.
Really well put. And again, like I said, it's not new, as you said, but I feel like it's, refreshing, but also maybe necessary, especially as we head into such a pivotal election year. I think I've never seen as much popularity, as much gravitas for this movement, the LGBTQ transgender movement, in particular now with these terms. Like, I don't remember even in the 2020 election if I heard the term gender affirming care. Right? It wasn't a thing. It seems to be very popular now, where it's being pushed on kids at a higher rate. And if it was around, I certainly don't remember hearing about it. Do you agree that the push on our children is more severe now?
Yes, and I believe that the reason is we have tyranny knocking at the door in America, and it's crystallized in the Democrat Party. And part of tyranny, part of communism, Marxism, whatever term we want to use, is to get the children. You don't have communism unless you get the children. And one of the best ways to get the children is to confuse them. And nothing confuses them more than when these powerful forces in society, these very influential dynamics, confuse them about their own sexuality, their own bodies, and then they can't even trust their parents anymore. And this is where, a regime that wants to control every aspect of our lives, and we see this in policies across the board being pushed by the Democrats now, is able to get in there, destroy the nuclear family, and just take control of everybody's lives. To some people, this might sound like, exaggerated, but I don't think it is when we really look at what's happening. And as you said, this ties directly in to what is at stake in this election. If people have got to start putting these issues together and realize that we have two different visions of America here. It's not even a position on one or another issue. I don't think that the people pushing transgender care at all about gender. I think they care about control. They care about power. They care about tyranny. They hate America. And this is what we see unfolding in front of us. And these are the stakes in this election.
Father Frank Pavone, in your time both in ministry and as a pro-life leader and somebody who's actively been involved in the public discourse in this country for as long as I've been following it, you've been a leader in this. Have you seen something as pervasive as this before?
No, I think this is, in many ways is unprecedented. I mean, and it's an outgrowth of so many other evils that we've seen along the way. We've already spoken about abortion, moral relativism, just an abandonment of faith in many ways. You know, you forget God. If you forget God, then you can no longer understand the creation. You forget the creator, the creation doesn't make sense anymore. That's where we're at. And documents like today that came out of the Vatican, you know, sometimes it's religious teaching that it's bringing. Sometimes it's just an affirmation of common sense. When we lose common sense, we risk the whole society falling into chaos. But no, it's never been so pervasive. This is an outright attack on everything we believe as Christians and as Americans.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, folks, we're on with Father Frank Pavone. And Father Frank, I just want to get something you just said very, very simply, but I feel like we gloss over this point a lot. Is first you talked about going after the children as part of a Marxist totalitarian plot, and I agree with that 100%. But something you also mentioned now was kind of like the elimination of God. And I feel like that is where we're at odds with, irrespective of political party. I feel like there's a lot of policy, a lot of movements, a lot of agendas that are just like, we believe in this and God doesn't believe in that, so therefore we don't believe in God and we don't want God and we want to kind of eliminate God and you're silly for even believing in God. And that wasn't something that really existed when I was a kid. It was kind of like, whatever you believe in, that's great. We believe in this. And we would kind of agree to disagree. But that's not the case anymore, is it?
No, it's not. And we have a situation now where, I mean, we had this commentator recently on MSNBC, I'm sure you saw, when she was questioning, this idea of God-given rights, this is crazy. These Christian nationalists are coming along and say, well, wait a second. Our founding fathers were in the same category. They put those words into the Declaration of Independence. And so that's where it's not that anyone has to belong to any particular denomination. I mean, also, you can be American and still be, and you can be an atheist. But the fact of the matter is that this system of government was founded on a belief in God, and the founders were convinced, and I think we're seeing this playing out now in our public life today, that unless a people who can govern themselves with a beautiful mechanism like our Constitution provides, unless that people knows the difference between good and evil, between what's going to help people or hurt people, well, then they may have the mechanism to govern themselves, but they're not going to know which direction to take the nation. And that's the challenge we have right now. Are we a nation under God or not? And that's going to determine a lot of things.
Yeah, you're right. I think the founders always harped on the fact that we had to be a virtuous people in order for this system that they created to work. Minus the virtue,
it won't work otherwise. Right.
We are where we are. Father Frank Pavone, let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with the amazing work that you're doing and how they could follow you.
Well, they can follow me on all the social media platforms, starting with Truth Social. At Fr Frank Pavone. That's Fr Frank Pavone. And our main website is endabortion.us. And they'll find all the different aspects of our ministry.
Well, Father Frank, I want to thank you for making yourself available, staying up late and sipping your coffee with us, because it's an important topic and there's a lot of Americans listening that really care about this stuff. So we appreciate it, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to doing it again.
Amen to that. Folks, he's a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, Father Frank Pavone. And your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. for Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
So Americans across the country were looking up to the sky today. No, not for a benediction, not for manna from heaven, not for a word from God, but for the solar eclipse, right? This big eclipse that we haven't had since, I think 2017 was the last one. And the next one isn't until 2044, if I know how to read correctly. And I wouldn't quote me on that one. But a lot of people saw it. People had 3D glasses on, special glasses on, these glasses on. I had my sunglasses. I wear aviators just like Joe Biden. I think I look cooler in them, though. And I didn't see anything. I took like 47 pictures on my cell phone. Every time the cloud came by, I was like, oh, it's cloudy. It was nothing. But a lot of people did get to see it. And quite a sight it was, and it's very, very cool. But I did not get to see it. So let's see. Let's see what some of you guys have to say. Let's go to Burlington, Vermont, WVMT, and check in with Lee. What was your experience today with the eclipse?
Well, I was out in my driveway, and I have like a view of the Adirondacks because the trees don't have any leaves on them right now.
Oh, nice.
And so I was looking up with the solar glasses, and just as the ring appeared, it had a red bead at the lower, just to the left of the bottom of the ring, like a bead on the ring, and it was one of those solar ejections. And it was beautiful, a silver ring with a red bead on the bottom. And wow. Then I took off the solar glasses, and I looked around, and it was as black as night. And I had heard the birds chirping as if they were getting ready to go to bed. And everything got quiet except for the people screaming down at the park below me. And they were honking horns. They were screaming and laughing and all, having a big old party down below. And I was watching, and there were the birds, the chickadees were chick, 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 and then it got silent. And then when it started to come out, when the diamond on the ring appeared, which was near the bottom,
right, I
looked around, and above, all the way along the top of the Adirondacks, was this gorgeous sunset. It looked like a sunset, but it was as the sun was starting to come back. Wow. And it was gorgeous all the way around. And then I heard something flying really fast. I looked up, and there was a bat flying over my head.
Wow. So they got confused, too. Now, I read that this does affect animals in an interesting way, and I only believe that because I've seen what a thunderstorm can do to the dog, right? So they sense things coming a mile away. That's remarkable. I didn't even know there was a diamond onto this little ring from what I've seen. There was only that little ring. That's very cool. It seems like you had an amazing view. Now, Lee, have you seen a solar eclipse in the past?
Well, in 2017, it was a partial, and at that time, it was during the part of the summer when there were leaves on the trees, and the tree just in front of my house is a maple, and it had leaves on it, and I looked down at the ground, and I saw partial eclipses all over the ground where the gaps between the leaves acted like pinhole cameras, and showed it on the ground right in front of my porch. And so, but this one, the diamond appears when that diamond appears, you have to put your the protective glasses on immediately, or you'll burn your retina.
Wow. Yeah. My daughter was like, I want to see it. I want to see it. And I told her, don't look at it. You need special glasses. And it's funny. My other daughter, who's away at school, she actually got a chance to see it. And we were texting back and forth. And she told me that her teacher or her boss or somebody at the school lent her the glasses to take a look, and she actually saw it as well, and she said it was really cool. So I'm glad she got to see it. I'm hoping my little one will get a chance to see it, and I think I'll still be around in 2044, so hopefully I'll get to see it too. Lee, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Sounds amazing, and I couldn't have done it any better myself had I seen it, and I didn't. Big shout out to Lee in Burlington, Vermont, WVMT. We're going to get to the rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5790. 5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. To the phones we go, 833-482-5337. That'll be it for phones on this hour. Then we got a couple of really good interviews coming up. And then it's back to the phones again at the top of the third hour. And we'll squeeze in a couple of calls, I think, in the 11 o'clock hour. But let's go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA, and check in with Eric. Eric, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the Freedom Caucus, and they've been getting a lot of negative publicity that they're not getting anything done, that they fight with one another, that they're all selfish. But I think they're standing for our values, and I think they've had some really good accomplishments. And I made a brief little list here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she increased her Facebook likes by 30%. Matt Gaetz has appeared on OAN 53 times the past 2 months. And Paul Gosar has gone to 4 different white supremacist conferences with Nick Fuentes.
But how does that help you or me?
Well, also, Lauren Boebert.
Oh, you're not answering my question.
In theater.
I'm trying to ask you a question. You're not answering. You see, the issue is I think people support the Freedom Caucus because Chairman Good and the rest of them, because they're fighting for what many Americans believe, right? That we should not have the spending that we have. And then there are people that will criticize them, but weak criticism, right? I mean, look at the criticism you gave, for example. I don't know where Paul Gosar has been, if he's been to white supremacist conferences or not. I don't support that stuff, but does that change the price of coffee in Brazil for me? No, it doesn't. And I don't think that's the case, quite frankly. I think that they're just like they say Trump's a white supremacist, or I'm a white supremacist. They said Larry Elder was a white supremacist. Eric, you can't believe all of the hype because then you end up repeating it. And then you sound silly on the radio repeating stuff like that, And it just isn't a good look, right? You want to come across as someone that's a little bit studied, a little bit intelligent, a little bit studious. And lamentably, you failed on that one. Frank, Evergreen, Montana, go right ahead. KOFI.
You don't have enough time for what I wanted to all say, but if there was an artificial God through hybriding, in vitro fertilization, and refining our DNA purposes to come up with a new creature, we'd have to have computer logic to go along with it.
Like artificial intelligence?
And I've done some logic. I've done logic programming before, but it'd be something like, in the beginning, the word was it, and it is the word.
Right. Well, I think the way it goes is, in the beginning, there was God, right? I think that's how it goes. Anyway, thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. And an interesting thought. And, the guys from it was in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was God. Anyway, the folks at the World Economic Forum, they all believe in that, right? They believe that God can be replaced by AI and that God's merely just an imaginary friend for grown-ups, and that what they promote and espouse, that's really the way of the future. I don't know if I get down with Yuval Harari and Klaus Schwab and those crazies. They're like real-life Dr. Evils. But anyway, thanks for the calls, guys. I appreciate it. Add a little levity to the show. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez, Hour 2, coming your way.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Monday night edition of our program. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we got a couple of really juicy topics we're going to get into right now. And at the top of the next hour, of course, it's Open Phone America, so make sure you give us a call for that. You can weigh in on any topic once we kick that off. And a couple of things in the news. Trump broke a huge fundraising record, raising, I don't know, $56 million or something like that the last time I looked. It's a world record, right, or a statewide, a national record in terms of presidential fundraisers. So kudos to the Trump team for doing that. There's some interesting reports on posture and how they affect you. We'll get into that in hour number 3. And let me see. There was another big story here. Trump requested to change the venue for the New York trial, and they said no to that. McConnell is asking folks in the Senate to take up the TikTok bill. If McConnell is asking for folks to divest TikTok, then I have to say I'm probably for leaving them alone because I've never agreed with McConnell on just about anything. That's probably not the most sound theory, but it is where I am. And let's see here. The White House responded to Pope Francis's condemnation of gender theory. We'll get into that a little bit later. And a few days ago, I mentioned I wanted to get into something that I think is incredibly important. And it was the video that went viral of a woman in Oklahoma, right? And this woman, she opens the door, and there's a bunch of men in her doorway, and her name is Rola Abdeljawad, and she's asking questions, and they're like, yeah, we're with the FBI office and blah, 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 and we want to talk to you about some of your social media posts, if that's okay. And they're very friendly in their kindergarten voice. And she's like, no, well, I don't want to talk to you. And who are you? And where are your credentials? And what's your name? And he's like, I already showed you my ID. I'm not showing you again. And blah. It was just really, really kind of sketchy to me. And the premise, right, the whole reason they were there. Imagine I wake up and somebody knocks on my door. Hey, we're with the FBI. How you doing? How you feeling today? Oh, yeah. So listen, we're here to talk about some of your social media posts. I'm closing the door. I'm not talking to the FBI about my free speech on Twitter, Truth Social, anything else. Now, I understand that sometimes they go out, they try to find people who are school shooters saying, look, there was tons of evidence. We saw the social media and it was ablaze with red flags and nobody did anything about it. Or, these people have been radicalized as Islamists or this or that, so we had to go check them out. But listen, there's other ways of investigating. If you want to ask me, that's fine, but I'm not going to talk to you. I know what I post, and if you want to try and take it somewhere else, then that's on you. I'm not calling for any type of civil war or anything of the kind, but this is dangerous territory in my opinion, because if I say something like, I don't like Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden is rotting our country, I think he's detrimental to the future of this country, and I think he needs to be removed ASAP. We have to get rid of Joe Biden. And you want to take my saying we got to get rid of Joe Biden as a threat against the president of the United States, or somehow a red flag that I may be part of an extremist group that may want to overthrow the government. Hold on a second. That's absolute craziness. But this is seemingly what happened to Ms. Rola Abdeljawad when she was visited by these agents, and she recorded the whole thing on her phone. And we've got a short clip of it. Listen to this.
So you said you were with the FBI? That's correct. And why won't you show me your credentials?
We did. I showed you my credentials.
I didn't take a look at them. I said, 1 second, I'll be right back. Are you going to show me your credentials or no?
Yeah, we did already. And we identified ourselves. So what we'd like to do
I didn't look at your credentials. Again, I didn't verify them. I told you to wait, and I went inside.
Okay, that's correct. What we'd like to do is just have a conversation with you about some social media posts that you've made. Would you be willing to talk to us today about that?
No, I would not. I would like you to later talk on with my lawyer.
Okay.
Do you have identification?
Do you have a card or something
cards?
For an attorney that we can reach out
No.
to you?
No. I'll get back to you.
Okay. All right.
You'd like to have your attorney contact the FBI office in Oklahoma City?
What's the number? What are the names of the agents?
I'll Google it for you.
So you're refusing to identify yourselves?
No, we've already identified ourselves.
Again, I did not take a look.
Yeah, so again, she's trying to get this on camera. This woman appears to be alone in her home. There's 3 or 4 men in the video that I saw, and they're all there. And none of them are, wearing their blue FBI flak jackets. They're wearing like cargo pants and a polo shirt with sunglasses, and anybody. They look like anybody that when you go to the 7-Eleven, looks like the guy in front of you. They didn't necessarily look. In the video, you could see her videotaping the license plate of the car that they arrived in. I think she did the right thing. I put myself in her position. I have 2 daughters, and I think I would tell my daughters, you get inside the house and call the cops, call whoever you got to call. These dudes come up to your door. I'm not talking to them. They looked kind of sketchy to me, and social media posts. Excuse me, what do you think this is? I pay taxes so that the FBI can research my social media posts, and I guess that's a part of the job. But it doesn't. And maybe I'm sensitive to that because I'm a radio host, but it doesn't seem right to me. So I want to get to the bottom of this with somebody who I think knows a little bit about this, a little bit more than me for sure. Kenneth Gray. He is a senior lecturer of criminal justice, Professor Kenneth Gray. He teaches Homeland Security and Emergency Management at the Henry Lee College of Criminal Justice and Forensic Sciences. He's a retired FBI agent, and he's our guest right now. Kenneth Gray, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Glad to be with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. So when you hear this clip of audio and this exchange, and you see, and it's, in my opinion, an alarming trend that I think we've seen with even Homeland Security officials that were investigating folks from school board meetings earlier, 2 years ago. And it just seems to be that free speech seems to be under attack from the government, and it's a scary proposition.
I agree with you that there are times when it appears that law enforcement may be overstepping the bounds of the First Amendment. The First Amendment is there to protect our freedom of speech, and people have the right to refuse to talk to law enforcement if they choose not to talk to them.
So in a situation like this, do you think the FBI is, overstepping their bounds? Do you think that this is commonplace for social media investigations? Should the FBI be investigating social media to begin with? We don't know the nature of all of it, but how common is this from your purview?
So I left the Bureau in 2012, so I can't tell you what the policy is today. I can tell you back in 2012 and before then that it took more than just a post on social media, unless it was an alarming post that was brought to the FBI's attention that looked like it was a threat or an actual promise to carry out some act of violence. That would be something that would trigger a visit like this. But, somebody expressing their political points of view without any call for violence or threats of violence, it would not trigger a visit, in my opinion. At least in 2012.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And listen, I don't even support the position this woman took. What they're saying, Fox News has a piece on this, as does Fox 25 and the Washington Post. And they're saying that she posted a post that said, Israeli terrorist filth, #Free Palestine. May Allah destroy every single despicable Zionist, their supporters and backers. Amin. And that because of this, this is why they decided to visit her. Now, again, I don't support that position, but she's saying that it seems to me that she wants God to destroy these people. She's not saying she's going to destroy these people, so I can't imagine why they would go and actually send 3 agents to the door of some woman who appeared to be at home alone. And it just seems out of whack to me. And you're saying, based on your experience, it was something that seemed uncommon from your time in the Bureau. So what do we chalk it up to?
So, of course, we don't know all the details of this. We can't put it into perspective. We don't know what things that she has been in contact with the Bureau before or has been a subject of an investigation before. Because of all these lacks of details, I would be very hesitant to try to make a call on whether this was a good idea or a bad idea. I just don't think we have enough details to to be able to say at this point.
All right. Well, folks, that's the bottom line from Kenneth Gray. Not enough details. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And we were going to continue with Professor Kenneth Gray, but he's on the road. He had pressing matters to attend to, and he wasn't able to fix the audio quality. But something we were scheduled to talk about was these push notifications and how the FBI is using those to catch criminals. Now, what I find interesting about this is all of these stories can go one way or the other, right? While the verdict is still out on the case of the woman in Oklahoma, and it could go either way, right? We saw what she posted. It doesn't seem like something that the FBI should be visiting about, but as former Agent Gray pointed out, this may be something, there might be more to the story, like was she previously investigated, et cetera, things we don't have the information for. But this phone feature of, push notifications, when you have an app and it lets you know that you have this many whatevers or that many whatevers, or if there's new information, has powered a new surveillance technique that's being used to catch suspected kidnappers and pedophiles. And this is pretty interesting. It's also fueling years of what many are calling a privacy nightmare because they're afraid, right? Some people are afraid of these things. Now, there's an alleged pedophile. It goes by the handle Love-'em Young. And this Love-'em Young has worked very hard to stay anonymous in the chat rooms where he brags about being sexually abusive of children. However, there was a criminal affidavit that says he covered his tracks by using something called Teleguard, an encrypted Swiss messaging app. And to do this, he shared a video of himself last month sleeping with a 4-year-old boy. But the FBI had this new strategy. A foreign law enforcement officer got Teleguard to hand over a small string of code that the company used to send push alerts. The pop-up notifications that announce, instant messages and news updates. And that's what they send to everybody's individual phone, including the suspect's phone. So an FBI agent then got Google to quickly hand over a list of email addresses this month that were linked to that code. This is called a push token. And they traced it back to one account to a man in Toledo, Ohio. And that's according to the FBI affidavit. The man, Michael Aspinwall, was charged with sexual exploitation of minors and distribution of child pornography and arrested within a week of the Google request. So this breakthrough relies on this little-known quirk of push alerts. And it's a basic staple of modern phones, right? There's always notifications. Those are all push alerts that are on your phone. They drive me crazy, and I usually tell most apps, no, I don't want them. But these tokens can be used to identify who the actual users are and what servers they're stored on, and if they're run by Apple or Google, which will then hand them over to law enforcement at their request. This is a big deal. And I don't think this is a violation of free speech when you're posting actual videos of you sleeping with a child. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that that's illegal no matter where you are, right? Being with little kids. So this guy Aspinwall was, again, from what I can see, was arrested on these child charges linked to push notifications. And it opens the question to me, is all of this stuff bad? I would say no, it's not all bad, right? I think there's a lot of good in something like this, a lot of good. And there's not a lot of good in visiting every last person that decides to post something that may be disparaging to a political party or to a political candidate or a sitting president, right? If that were the case, where were these investigations when Kathy Griffin, and she eventually did get in trouble, I believe, were holding the head of President Trump in effigy, the bloody head of President Trump, or when we had that audio from the other day of the Democrats calling for violence. I think Madonna saying, I would love to blow up the White House. You have Congresswoman Maxine Waters saying, when you see them, you get in their face. It was just absolute. Even Cory Booker was shaking his fist. And Cory Booker is a very chill dude. I've met him a few times, and he's a nice guy. I disagree with him politically, but not a violent guy. He's a happy-go-lucky, smiling kind of guy. And, he was all shaking his fist, being angry with Trump and conservatives. And it's just remarkable to me, the amount of vitriol that's out there. So it makes one wonder, right? Where were the FBI investigations then? None, right? But the minute that you have, and I'm not defending January 6th in any way, but it was amazing how they put every investigative resource they had available, and they employed it quickly when January 6th happened. And I guess rightfully so, right? But to the point where they were chasing down old ladies and going after people that were just like conservative activists, like our buddy Brandon Strzok, who was making a video outside the building, but because he was on the grass, he was also charged when he had nothing to do with that. And he was in jail for, 10, 14 days, whatever it was, some, ridiculously long amount of time. Those things are abuses of power. And those are the hallmarks of a totalitarian regime. So, I find it really rich and really funny when you hear clip after clip after clip. At least, I don't play them all, but I see them. They come through my desk every day of MSNBC, CNN, and others on the left on the news or the news people themselves saying when Trump gets in, he's going to become a dictator. When in reality, while Trump was in office, they had weaponized the legal system against him in the form of the FBI, in the form of the Mueller investigation. These were things that already happened. They weaponized the impeachment process against him, right? That was an illegitimate impeachment. The second impeachment, he wasn't even in office. So you tell me if that was fair. Clearly, Trump has been the victim here all along. And now they're just trying to protect themselves and insulate themselves for doing what they did, the abuse of the FISA system, the fallout that's going to occur from this. They're trying to insulate themselves from any type of prosecution when we actually have a real attorney general that would go after people. I saw something yesterday that said that on the short list of candidates for attorney general, should Trump win in November, none other than Kash Patel, who's been on this program a number of times. Now, will it happen? I don't know. But I can tell you this, he'd make one damn good attorney general. Folks, stick around. We're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more, plus a little bit on what's going on in Israel and this new strategy in Gaza. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So over the weekend, we saw a lot of fallout about protests that occurred in Dearborn, Michigan. And, these are the crowd that says Israel is a cancer, as if they were Nazis, right? And one of the things that they were shouting at this particular rally for the Al-Quds Day rally in Dearborn, Michigan, was death to Israel and death to America. Listen to this.
We've been asked in the past, why are our protests on the International Day of Quds, why are they so anti-America? Why don't we just focus more on Israel and not talk so much about America? Gaza has shown the entire world why these protests are so anti-America. Because it's the United States government that provides the funds for all of the atrocities that we just heard about. And this is why Imam Khomeini, who declared the International Day of Quds, this is why he would say to pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
They're shouting death to America.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth." And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
Well, there you have it. He was pretty clear on that. Again, and this is one of the protesters at the Al-Quds Day rally in Dearborn, Michigan, Friday. Now, today we heard news of a reorganization of the troops in Gaza, and I want to talk about the reaction to this audio clip as well as the reorganization with our guest. Our guest is the consul in New York for Israel, spokesperson for media affairs at the Israeli Consulate in New York, Consul Itay Milner. Welcome, sir.
Hi, welcome, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
My pleasure. Thanks for staying up late and joining us. I'm sure you've been very busy lately. And when you hear this this audio clip, and I'm sure you've heard stuff like that before, but I think a lot of people haven't heard that before, or at least that explicit. How do you react to that?
I gotta say it's pretty amazing. I've heard chants like that in Iran, which is the original initiator of Al-Quds Day, and you know, in the West Bank, in Gaza, and in the Middle East. But to hear someone in the heartland of America, in Dearborn, Michigan, chanting "Death to America," that's astonishing. I mean, these people live in America. Obviously, they choose to stay in America, and yet they call for its destruction. It doesn't surprise me because I've been around this issue long enough to know that the same sentiment that drives people to chant "Death to Israel" goes hand in hand with the same sentiment towards America. But it is very surprising that they're saying it out loud like that. And I think that it's a testimony of it's an evidence of how comfortable they feel on this issue, which is alarming.
Itay Milner, I couldn't agree with you more. This is scary stuff to me. I remember the first time that I heard, "Death to America," the big Satan, "Death to Israel," the little Satan, probably, I don't know, 5-7 years ago. And I thought, how? And this was, like you said, it was in Iran, and it was how they open their session of parliament. And I thought, wow, imagine if in the United States we opened with a prayer. And just imagine if we did something like that here, we would be the talk of the town. But yet nobody's really ever talked about this. I mean, I talk about it, you talk about it, a few of us talk about it. But I feel like most people, if you ask them on the street, even in New York City, and I know you're a New York guy, if you were to ask people, do you know that they open sessions of parliament shouting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel" in Iran? I think most people would say, no, that's not true. How is this possible?
I think we live in a day and age that people are just interpreting everything according to their what serves their political beliefs. And you see some of those marches for pro-Palestine, queer for Palestine, and things like that. And you ask yourself, don't these people know what LGBT people, how they're being treated in Gaza or in the West Bank or in other places in the Middle East? How could they stand raising this flag? How can they protest for the destruction of the only country in the Middle East that has a gay parade and has a vibrant LGBT community, many of them fighting in Gaza as we speak. And even when you confront them with this truth, they don't seem to be bothered. They seem to be so caught on their agenda and their set of beliefs that they somehow bridge it. I don't understand how, but they somehow, even though they are well aware of this contradiction, they still go forward with those chants. So it's a lot of hypocrisy, and especially when the same people are literally canceling people for just saying the wrong word or expressing something in the wrong way. So it's beyond reasonable, but that's the world that we are living in.
Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. And I think you raise an excellent point, right? When you have these groups like Queers for Palestine and these people who really are not involved in this fight per se, they just hear that the rhetoric that Israel is colonialist, occupier, settlers, and they just jump on this bandwagon, not realizing that their very, very liberal way of life and worldview isn't accepted in Iran or in many of these other places. It's really astounding. Folks, I want you to stick with us. We're going to continue our conversation with Consul Itay Milner, spokesperson for media affairs at the Israeli Consulate in New York, and we're going to discuss this reorganization of troops that the IDF has announced straight ahead. Itay Milner, stick with us. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Tonight, after that Israeli military withdrawal from southern Gaza, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowing to mount a controversial ground offensive in the southern city of Rafah. There is a date. It will happen, he said this evening, though not revealing when. Israel says Rafah is the last Hamas stronghold, but President Biden opposes an attack on the city where over 1 million Palestinian civilians are currently taking shelter. Meantime, Palestinians returning to the areas Israeli forces left behind survey their shattered neighborhoods in disbelief. You can't live here. Animals can't live here, this man says in Khan Yunis. All of this as there's increasing pressure from the U.S. to reach a ceasefire agreement. Marking the 6-month anniversary of the Hamas terror attack, Netanyahu saying there will be no ceasefire unless Hamas frees hostages. While ordinary Palestinians are desperate for any kind of respite after half a year of death and destruction. Meantime, we're hearing that plans promised by Benjamin Netanyahu to open new aid crossings into Gaza are still in the works, but could take several more days.
All right, folks, we're back, and I want to get the reaction to that report of the reorganization of troops in Gaza towards Rafah from our guest. He's the consul for media affairs at the Israeli Consulate in New York City, Itay Milner. Welcome back. You hear this report, and you've heard Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments on it. Tell us about it.
Yes. So the reports about repositioning the IDF troops in Khan Yunis, it's part of the operation. You see, the operation in Khan Yunis has already reached the point that the troops pretty much done what they came to do. They destroyed Hamas infrastructures. They destroyed their bases, their tunnels, their warehouse. where they produce arms. And right now it's a time to reposition and go to places that still needs to be to destroy Hamas. Places like the Central Refugee Camp and, of course, Rafah. Now, Rafah is a complicated issue because it's the last resort where Palestinians took refuge. And any invasion of Rafah will have to come alongside with a plan of how to get civilians out of there, so civilians won't be hurt in the process. It's also the source of disagreement between the Israeli government and the administration. But I think that there is an understanding in all sides that it has to be done eventually. It's where the last 4 battalions of Hamas are stationed in Rafah, and not going into Rafah basically means that we are not finishing the job, and we are not achieving one of the main goals of this war, which is the 2 goals are to free the hostages and to eliminate Hamas, to destroy Hamas. Also, the hostages most likely are in Rafah. All of that is at the same time parallel to a negotiation of a hostages deal, in which we hope to release the last hostages that are still there. We still have 133 hostages, which includes the live ones and the ones that are not alive anymore. We don't know the exact number, how many are alive and how many are not. But we are trying to reach a deal right now so we can save the ones that can be saved. That negotiation also includes the situation in Rafah. But the one thing that we are not going to agree at any term is that the war will end without us going into Rafah. What I mean to say is that even if we will have an hostages deal right now, and we will free, 40, 50 hostages, and we will pause the fight for a month or so, we will not agree to anything that restricts us from going into Rafah eventually.
Now, to your critics who say that this is a retreat or a surrender, what do you say?
I think that anyone who studied the material and know what's going on in Gaza understand that we don't have anything to do in Khan Yunis right now. There's not much left of it, and frankly, there's no Hamas militants there whatsoever. And we have limited force. We are already in a 6-month war. We have to release many of the reserves for some time off so they can go back to their lives. Some of them have businesses, families, and they know that they're going home, but they will have to return eventually. So it's more of a tactical thing than a strategic thing.
Right. That makes sense. Folks, we're on with Itay Milner, Consul for Media Affairs at the Israeli Consulate in New York City, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, folks, we're going to go to the phones with Doc, Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL. Doc, you're on with Israeli Consul Itay Milner and me. Go right ahead, quickly.
I'll keep it brief. Consul Milner, it's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you, sir. Consul Milner, you're on the ground. I'm not in Israel. I've traveled to Israel extensively, in the Middle East extensively. Do you think there are enough moderates in the Muslim world, Consul Milner, that in our lifetimes we will see these moderates take control of their countries, either by force or peacefully, so that there will be finally lasting peace in the Middle East with the moderates in the Muslim world, then new regimes all over the region who will finally make peace with Israel? Your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc. Yes. It's an excellent question, and we need to remember what situation we have been just a week before the war started. The most pending issue in the month of September, last September, was whether there will be a peace treaty signed with Saudi Arabia and Israel. There were already a plan, there were already talks, and I can tell you that it was very, very close. And that was supposed to be an extension of the Great Abraham Accords that President Trump led. And the war in Gaza is not just erupted; it actually happened by many because they wanted to prevent Iran wanted to prevent from this treaty to be signed. Because for Iran, the biggest threat is to have those moderate countries, Muslim moderate countries, such as Saudi Arabia and United Emirates, becoming in a treaty with Israel against Iran. Now, after 6 months of war, the situation in the Middle East is very tense. The Arab world is watching endlessly images from Gaza, and they're watching Al Jazeera, which is very, very propagandist channel that's showing them half-truths and misinformation. But one thing did not change, and one thing will not change. One thing that did not change is that Iran is still the biggest threat to the Middle East. It's the biggest threat to Saudi Arabia and the biggest threat to all of the other moderate Muslim countries. I believe that once this war ends, we will be back to the table because Iran is gaining more momentum. Hamas is an Iranian proxy, and the Houthis in Yemen are Iranian proxy, and Hezbollah. And the Arab world is watching it, and I can tell you that also they are cheering for us sometimes, not publicly, of course. And I think that they see what's happening, and they see that this could happen to them the very same way or even worse. Eventually, I think that the strategic interest of the region will prevail, and we will see, and we will go back to the same point that we've been before the war started.
Consul Itay Milner, excellent response, and my hope is that you'll get back to that place as well. With this war being a setback, but not hopefully a major setback in terms of peace. Obviously, a major setback and loss of life, no doubt. Consul, I thank you for being with us. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for staying up late with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Folks, Open Phone America is coming up right now. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Get your calls in. We're talking about everything from the war in the Middle East to the FBI coming and knocking at your door to Trump's fundraising and everything else. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome to the program. Hour number 3 of Monday edition. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, this is a great time to call in. If you're a first time caller, you never called into radio, but you had that urge, I encourage you to call in. I'd love to chat with you. If you're a regular, we'll be talking in a little bit. And if you disagree with me, I really want you to call in because I love to have those discussions. The number again, 833-4-VALDEZ. And again, President Trump shattered some fundraising records with a whopping, I think the number's $56 million, blowing away Joe Biden. And I think that's a testament to the people, right? And I think he said so as much, too. I don't know if we have audio on that, but if we do, you let me know. But I believe he said something to the fact that this shows you how much the people are interested. Now, of course, the critics will say that that's his billionaire friends. But I think we've seen him lead the way with small dollar donations. And, again, let's really talk about who the underdog candidate here is, right? It's not the guy that's sitting in the White House, for sure. It's the guy that's got 4 felony indictments, 91 felony charges, looking at 4 consecutive 100-year sentences, 400 years in jail. And he was impeached twice. One of them he wasn't even president anymore. So you tell me who's getting a raw deal here. I think it's Donald J. Trump. And kudos to him and the team for pulling off this, fundraising. I don't even know what to call it. It's a lot more than just breaking a record, right? It's more like the Guinness Book of World Records when it comes to fundraising, but good for them. Anyway, I want to get into a couple of things tonight. Of course, we're going to get into your calls. And I see we have calls from Georgia, from Idaho, and more that are coming in. 833-482-5337 is the number. And another thing that I wanted to get into, here it is. This is the page I was looking for, is some of the stuff that I see over the weekend and I flag, and I think, man, what's going on here? And being that we're speaking about Trump, Adam Schiff for brains. I know some people get upset when I say that. They say, you're too smart to call them names. No, come on, man, it's talk radio. What good is talk radio if you don't get to call names? But Adam Schiff for brains was on television, and the left and Adam Schiff are panicking at the possibility that Donaldus Magnus El Trumpito, the 45th president of these United States, should he be elected again to be president number 47, that he will pick Kash Patel to be his attorney general. Listen to this.
But what jumped out as potentially the most alarming detail was that within the actual Trump campaign, the person whose name is being floated to be Trump's attorney general of the United States to run the Justice Department is this guy.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
That is Kash Patel, the former chief of staff to Trump's Secretary of Defense, a man who is apparently on the short list for attorney general if Donald Trump retakes office. Now, Trump has not been shy about his desire to weaponize the DOJ and use it to go after his enemies, and we should probably take him at his word about that. I do think he is serious, but don't just take it from me. Last month, Trump announced that all of the January 6th committee members should go to jail. And today, the LA Times interviewed some of those members to ask how seriously they were taking those threats. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren said, one thing I learned on the committee is to pay attention and listen to what Trump says because he means it. If he intends to eliminate our constitutional system and start arresting his political enemies, I guess I would be on that list. The paper also interviewed Congressman Adam Schiff.
Now, what's funny here is this, right? I got 2 names for you. Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer. Now, what do those names have anything to do with this? I'll tell you. Donald Trump ran for office, rally after rally, 10,000, 15,000, 30,000 people. Lock her up. Lock her up. Talking about Hillary Clinton, did a presidential debate. And she said, man, well, I'm lucky you're not the president. He said, you're right, because you'd be in jail. Right? Remember that? Great mic drop moment. Fantastic debate. Where's Hillary Clinton today? Hillary Clinton go to jail? Did he investigate Hillary Clinton? Did anything at all happen to Hillary Clinton? No. Trump said he was going to lock her up, and she didn't go to jail. So there's a precedent for Trump saying that people should go to jail, which is his opinion, and he's entitled to, and it not happening. Because I have opinions, but if I had a job, you know, I'm a school board member, and I understand there's a difference between what one has to vote on and what one opines, right? That's just the reality of life. Just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that your thoughts are going to guide your life and your thoughts and your outlook. But ultimately, if you're elected to serve this population of people known as the United States, you don't always get to use your opinion, right? You have to weigh the situation and take in the gravity of all of it. Anyway, so that's the first name I'll throw at you is Hillary Clinton. The second name I'll throw at you is Chuck Schumer. Now, why is Chuck Schumer of any importance? Because he's the one that said that Trump had gone too far and that the intelligence community had 6 ways from Sunday to get you if they want to get you. And boy, did they get him. They got him with the FISA court. They got him with the Mueller investigation, with the subsequent investigation. The whole Russia hoax, obviously, was part of that. And they continue now with the weaponization of this RICO Act in Georgia, with the craziness in New York City on multiple cases, the Mar-a-Lago raid, the documents case. I mean, there's just so much going on. How could anybody sit here and tell me that take Donald Trump at his word? Take him at his word. He said he was going to lock up Clinton, and nothing happened. Take Chuck Schumer at his word that they'll come at you 6 ways from Sunday, and they did. So you tell me who you want to take at their word. Now, I don't know if you believe anything in that report. I know I didn't. I didn't believe anything that this woman, what was her name? Let me see. I don't have her name, from MSNBC. But she was very, very scared that Trump and Zoe Lofgren, the congresswoman, and every member of the January 6th committee, yeah, they should all be afraid. And it would be great to see justice be done the other way around. It's not that these are his political enemies. Of course, they're going to paint it that way. These are the enemies of liberty, right? The enemies of the people, the enemies of our country. When you stand against what America really stands up for, the rule of law, equal protection under the law, what else do you have left? Where does that leave us if they are going to abuse the system? It doesn't leave us anywhere. All right, anyway, I'm going to get to your calls and more straight ahead. I also want to talk about how the folks in the UK, boy, are things getting out of hand. So in the UK, you've got the government talking about potentially forcing old people to sell their homes so that immigrants could take them over, saying the house is too big for you. And then there's a secondary proposal where they're considering euthanasia. Imagine that. Because you're old and you got a big house, they either force you to sell it or worse. You don't believe it? Wait till you hear this coming up straight ahead. Folks, our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we continue with your calls and more. Let's go to Ken, Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Ken, tell me, what do you think about this reaction that the media is having with President Trump putting Kash Patel on a short list for Attorney General? Your thoughts?
I don't really know that fellow, Rich, and I'm normally pretty up on who's in the political circle on things like that. But
gotcha. Well, just so you know, he was the guy who was the chief of staff at the Pentagon on the day of January 6th, kind of running back and forth trying to get those 10,000 troops over to Nancy Pelosi and Mayor Bowser, and to no avail. They weren't helping him out. Before that, he was the investigator on the Intelligence Committee in the House of Representatives with then Chairman Nunes when they were fighting against the Russian collusion hoax. So he's from the thick of it. He's been involved, former federal prosecutor, a good lawyer, and former, sub-cabinet member who I think would be a great addition to Trump's team should that happen. But I know you had some other things you wanted to mention. Go right ahead.
So, Rich, what state is he from?
He's from Florida.
All right, good. They seem to have.
But he's a New Yorker.
Around pretty good down there. They didn't let the COVID crap run them into the ground like a lot of the blue states. But good old storytelling Joe was over in Wisconsin today, telling a bunch of college kids that he's gonna forgive $20,000 of their student loans, even though the Supreme Court has told him he doesn't have the right and the lawful ability to do that. The man is such a pandering fool. He's still saying that. And who's going to sit and listen to this guy? The Supreme Court told you couldn't do it.
So this is a good one, Ken. And let me explain how this works a little bit, because what's interesting is, well, first, let me let everybody know, because you're like you said, you're up to speed on everything. Here's what Biden said today. Listen to this.
From day one, my administration has been committed to fixing the broken student loan system and making sure higher education is a ticket to the middle class, not a barrier. My administration has approved debt cancellation for 4 million Americans through various actions. And today, I'm announcing new plans that would cancel student debt for millions more. In total, these plans would cancel some or all student debt for 30 million Americans, when combined with everything we've done so far.
So, Ken, what he's talking about is this, and you're right. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot forgive the debt. That's not part of your role as president. That's Congress's job, right? So what happens here is President Obama, in effect, created a bank when he took over and guaranteed. The student loans were always guaranteed, but they started processing the loans instead of through the banks. They started processing directly through the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education. So back in the days, it used to be like companies like Sallie Mae and others that had loans. Now, many of these loans, the guaranteed student loans, are through, they're called, what are they called? Federal Government Department of Education loans. And those Department of Education loans, which again, the federal government basically bought them and now owns that debt. So they said, we're going to forgive this debt. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. And so they went back to the drawing board with their lawyers, and they figured out, okay, if you won't let us forgive the debt because that's not in our purview, what is in our purview as head of the executive branch, the president, and this executive authority that he has over the federal departments? And they came up with a solution that includes restructuring the debt to a zero payment plan. Now, I don't know if this actually meets the standard that the court said of not doing what he did. They think it is, and I haven't seen a challenge come forward yet. It doesn't mean there won't be one. But it seems that they've kind of used the parameters the court gave them and said, oh, you don't want us to do that? We won't do that. We'll do this. And they're restructuring. And the only reason I know that is because I have some student debt, and I got a letter that said that I had to, that they were now expanding the criteria to make a zero payment per month plan to 400% above poverty level. Imagine that, 400%. So meaning you could make, in theory, hundreds of thousands of dollars and still not have to pay back these loans based on the new criteria that Biden's putting into place, which he's bragging about as a debt cancellation. Because in effect, you won't have to pay that loan back. because it'll get zeroed out under his authority as the head of the executive branch. Now, whether the Supreme Court, if this gets taken back there and they say, no, you can't do that, they're not. I don't think they're going to turn around and charge people this money, right? These, 30,000, whatever, 10 million people, whatever the number was. So I don't know if he's outsmarted the court or if he's figured out a new way to build a mousetrap. I mean, I think we saw Trump do something similar, not similar in that sense, but when they said, no, you can't use this money for that, and they sued, and eventually said, no, all right, you could do it. You're the executive branch, and you can go ahead and do what you got to do to build the wall, right? So I think Biden has found a loophole. I don't know if he has or hasn't. I'll let you know if they ever forgive any of my debt. I don't expect them to. Pretty sure I'm on a list somewhere. Excuse me. Where they'll say, no, not that guy. We don't like that guy. Go ahead.
The Democrats claim to be for the middle class, and that kind of stuff will do nothing but just piss the middle class off.
Oh, yeah, and hurt the middle class.
Guys that paid to go to trade schools, apprentice programs, paid every week out of their checks, and now you got this clown telling people, hey, it's just unbelievable. It really is. It's just,
and not only that, I mean, that's an excellent point. But I think the bigger point is so many of these people have gone to these schools that were nothing more than indoctrination. They went in there not knowing what they wanted to be when they grew up, and they came out with a degree that was not in the field that they were planning on going into, one that they found probably to be difficult to get a job in unless they worked in government or as a teacher. And with this new philosophy of life where they hate America, they hate Israel, and they think that, everything that is good is bad and everything that's bad is good. And this indoctrination is really, it's the worst I've ever seen it. So, Ken, I thank you for the call. I got to take a quick pause right here. But you're right. It's going to piss off Americans coast to coast, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of people that paid to go to school and paid their loans back through blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice. And for people who didn't even know what they wanted to study, and I'm not trying to put them down. Many of them are working in their field, irrespective of the outcome. I took my loans. I intend to pay them back, right? And I think everybody should look at it that way. I've never expected a freebie, and I don't think a lot of people did. I think they just got caught up in life. They got caught up in this inflation that Biden's created, and now he's pandering to younger voters, hoping and praying that they're going to fall in love with him because he's, hooked them up with this debt forgiveness or cancellation or whatever it is. So we'll see how it plays out. Ken, again, thanks for the call. Shout out to WILS. Folks, if you want to join the conversation, we're going to talk more about these college degrees in a little bit. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Your calls and more coming right up. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Suzanne, where are we going to put these people? The uncomfortable truth, as far as I can see it, is that we are going to have tent cities of asylum seekers popping up around the UK.
Well, I think you summed it up beautifully, Patrick, just the huge pressure that we're seeing now in accommodation, and that does seem to be the only answer. But I'm actually a little bit more worried than that, because I think this is all getting very sinister now. We know that we've had people who have been told that their properties are going to be compulsory purchased for asylum seekers. That pretty much tears up private property rights in this country. I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they were talking about a massive problem facing Britain, which was older people living in houses that were, quote, too big for them. Who's got a right to tell you your house is too big for you? You should be allowed to live where you darn well like. And the implication was very clear. These elderly people are taking houses that they shouldn't have. And I fear that's a worry, that there'll be some kind of move to get them out of those houses. We've also had the horrible scenario last week when Matthew Parris, writing in the Times, talked about how euthanasia wouldn't be a bad thing if it encouraged elderly people to hasten their own deaths. So what? We've got to Pop our clogs, have we, forcibly, when we're 60, 70, 80, 90, perhaps earlier, if we're not productive people in society, as Matthew Paris said it. So I think the whole thing now is getting really, really sinister and scary.
Okay. I agree. That's sinister and scary. If you're an old person, they think your house is too big, we're going to force you to sell it so that some asylum seeker immigrant can take over your house. Just when we've heard about these guys focused on squatters' rights here in America, the guys coming from Venezuela, thankfully they locked up that one guy with the big mouth on TikTok, but that doesn't mean there's more like him out there. And, of course, the idea of processing new legislation and promoting new legislation for the idea, the process, application of euthanasia. Crazy, right? I mean, just crazy. And I'm not saying I'm totally against it. I actually, believe it or not, if you want to get angry with me, that's something I'm willing to be on the fence about, believe it or not, because I've just seen some ugly, ugly deaths. And I think people, may in fact have, that right with their doctor. It's not somebody else's life. It's their own, right? It's not the unborn. It's the old person that is looking at a world of hurt. But that aside, I think it's crazy that the government is trying to, kill off the old people or force them to sell their homes that are too big for them in the name of making room for immigrants. That's absolute insanity where I come from. Anyway, I want to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and check in with a peach that's calling in on WGKA. Jilly, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Rich, we want to thank you from all of us for giving you have given us the voice of hope. You give us hope, and we thank you so much for that. Amid everything that's going on with the turmoil, the war, corruption, and everything, you make things seem brighter.
Oh, God, thank you
so much.
Thank you. I tend to think that I'm jaded sometimes.
No. The total eclipse today, that was God saying we all came together for 1 second. Everyone came together, and it was great. And I just pray that you know how thankful we are for you and your program. God, you help us so much. You really do.
Amen. That is so nice of you, Jilly. The check is in the mail. God bless you. That's wonderful. You really made my night.
No. We're fighting the fight. We're fighting this fight. And from Atlanta, I won't even get into it with Fulton County.
Your friend, Funny Willis?
Oh, my gosh. It's hard. It's very difficult. But we're going to fight. And
we have to fight.
Because of people like you, we're going to do it, and we're going to conquer it, and we're coming back big and strong, and just really bless you and your team and all that you do. Know that. Please really know that in your heart, and I pray for you and your family.
Yeah, and Julie, go ahead. You cut out for a moment.
No, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. The people in office now, I pray they could go slowly, go somewhere else.
Right, like the old saying, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here, right? Now, Jilly, I want to ask you a question about this clip of audio that you just heard. You sound like a very sensible woman that has a heart. And when you hear about the government in the UK potentially considering euthanasia and forcing the elderly to sell their homes to make way for migrants, how do you react to that?
God, what's going on? What is happening everywhere? What is going on? I don't know. That's
what I'm saying.
Are we being I don't know. Tell me, please.
I'll tell you what it is. I think there is a perversive nature to humanity that we've oftentimes sought to suppress, right? If you look back at Aristotle, right, and the Nicomachean Ethics, the idea that we live our lives to live a wholesome life, not to... When he talks about happiness for him is a life that we are proud to live and leave behind, right? It's not the standard of happiness that we have in today's standard, which is, I don't know, me buying a new chain, a fancy watch, a nicer car, and, hanging out at the best nightclubs on the weekends. That's not happiness. That's passing time, right? Real happiness is leaving a life and a legacy behind where you're impacting other people in a positive way. Obviously your children and those around you. And that was Aristotle's idea of how we should live our life based on virtue ethics. However, we've gone away from that because we've gone away from that way of thinking. We've gone toward a more hedonistic way of thinking where it's about feeding the flesh. It's about, not suppressing those desires within us that are egotistical and selfish, right? So when we give in to that, then we lose our way. And it was kind of, we had that conversation a little bit earlier with respect to our constitutional system. This system only works, according to the founders themselves, if we are a virtuous people. If we no longer are a virtuous people, or at least aiming to be a virtuous people, then the system is useless. And we can see that in some of the more left-wing cities across America, where you have the police that have their hands tied, right? So to be virtuous as a cop, you would have to go after the bad guys. And if you're a mayor that's being virtuous in that system, you have to tell your police, go after the bad guys. Irrespective of race, creed, color, or anything else, we're going after the bad guys and we're going to be fair. But we're not fair, right? We're going after the wrong people in many cases, and the people that are guilty of sin, we're not going after them at all. And when you have this departure from the Enlightenment, I would argue, that produces this effect where we're now going towards the Dark Ages, right? Instead of going towards the Enlightenment. And I guess we just need a shift, a revival. I don't know what to call it, but we need an awakening in this country that I think we're on the precipice of. I think we really are facing this moment. I don't know if it's a moment or a series of moments where finally we reach this tipping point where people say, you know what, enough is enough. And I think if I'm not blind, and I don't think I am, I think when I go to New York City, when I'm in Manhattan, when I'm on social media and I meet people, there's still people that will block me just because they're like, oh my gosh, you're a conservative Republican, get out of here. But then there's now people that blocked me 2.5 or 3 years ago, and they're saying, you know what, you were right. So I think people are coming to the realization that when you go too far in the liberal perspective, which I think is being perverted by the progressives, as it's not really that liberal at all. It's actually pretty hate-filled, in my opinion. But when you go too far in that direction, it creates an unsustainable situation. And people liked having a better 401k. People liked having peace in the Middle East. People liked having a more robust economy. And I think people want that again. They don't want inflation. They don't want crime in their cities. They don't want an open border. And that's exactly what we're looking at. So I think most people are on board today saying, you know what, Orange Man bad? Not that bad at all. Anyway, Julie, I'm going to take a pause right here because the clock is yelling at me. I appreciate everything you said. Godspeed to you. You are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for the call. Coming right back, folks. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Tens of millions of people's debt was literally about to get canceled. But then some of my Republican friends and elected officials and special interests sued us, and the Supreme Court blocked us. But that didn't stop us. No, I mean it sincerely. We continue to find alternatives paths to reduce student debt payments.
And he's finding those alternatives. Like he said, that didn't stop him. And I'm hoping I'm on that list. Even though my last name ends with a V, hopefully I'm at the end of the list and they make it to me. That would be great. I would love that. And I would thank every American who participates in that. But again, this is Biden's master plan, his scheme to win over younger Americans to forgive this debt or cancel or restructure. Really, it's a restructuring of student debt where they own these notes, and they're saying, okay, good, your monthly payment's now going to be zero. And I'm not talking about going into forbearance or anything like that. This is literally during the repayment. It's a new version of repayment where the minimum payment is zero and works out to being a zero payment. I don't know how they do the math on that. It seems fuzzy to me, but that's what they've decided to do. Now, on the other hand, you've got folks that have been to school, have gotten a couple of degrees, and are kind of, throwing their arms up and saying they don't know what to do. Right? There's a girl on TikTok right now. She's making all the headlines because she is just beside herself with her college experience. Listen to this.
Can anyone explain to me how I have 2 degrees? I have 2 degrees. Oh, and a certificate. A little extra, right? I have a certificate. May not be a master's, but it's something extra along with the 2 degrees, you know? I'm trying to apply for jobs right now, and the thing is that the only person I have responding to me is a man from a tech company saying, hey, you want to answer some customer service problems? You want to answer some customer service calls? No, Bart, I don't want to answer your calls. No offense, but I'm a little more qualified than to just to be sitting around answering your customer service calls, Bart. Okay, I'm sorry, but Bart is the only one who's responding to me. So what am I supposed to do? And I'm looking down at these, and I'm looking at them, and I'm kind of wondering. I'm like, what was this for again? Oh, I don't know. Beats me.
And she's kind of, I'm going to use the word exasperated here, right? At her wit's end because she's gone to school and she can't get a job. And I think the reality is everything is what you make of it. It really is, right? Everything is timing. Everything is talent, skill, ability, and your network. If you go to school, there was a time, and I remember it, early 2000s, there was no way to get a job making $65,000 or $70,000 a year, or even $50,000 a year back then, without a college degree. If you didn't have a bachelor's degree, it was almost impossible. Even some companies had like quotas on these things. Even the government, they would say, no more than 2% of our workforce will have less than a baccalaureate degree. And I remember because I was always in that percent. I was always working on my degree, and I was part of the exception, not the rule. And I didn't like school. I loved school, but I didn't like arguing with professors trying to constantly, berate me because of my opinions, whether they were through the lens of a Christian worldview or if they were more conservative than theirs. And, I made the mistake of being honest in college. I made the mistake of taking the bait, if you will. And it's unfortunate because they took it out on me. I remember I had one professor. This is really the reason I just didn't continue pursuing higher education, who just really slammed me. And he failed me for a course unfairly when I was averaging a very passing grade. And I had, prior to that, the semester prior, I had Dean's List honors when I was at NYU. But this guy took it upon himself. And I remember he never gave me a grade, just didn't even post a grade. And the school year had ended, and it was like almost a month. And I was like, what's going on? So I knew from being in his class that he also taught at Fordham. So I called the department that he worked in at Fordham and left him a voicemail. And he emailed me back saying, oh, yeah, I remember you were problematic and blah, blah, blah. And just this stupid response that was not even remotely rooted in the truth. And I complained to the Board of Governors at NYU, and their response was, we totally understand what you're saying and see how you could be frustrated about that. However, we can't go back on our academic freedom policy where we allow our professors to kind of dictate what they want to do. And if he wants to fail you for the entire semester, he can, even though you were averaging a passing grade on the course because he didn't like your final. And I was like, are you for real? Like, I'm paying for this. And their contention was, yeah, again, we have to stick up for academic freedom for our faculty because that's what we believe in. And I was like, wow, so you're sticking up for the faculty. Who's sticking up for the students? Now, I later learned about an organization called FIRE. I think they go by the fire.org, and they do great work in this area. I just didn't know about them then, and I let them push me around. It's probably why I have such a big mouth today against the lefty liberal progressives, because they pushed me around when I was younger. But I can tell you that that's because I knew a few things, and I had a different way of thinking, and I saw things differently. But think of all the kids that didn't go into college prepared to take on some of that stuff. They get done in. They get brainwashed. They get these new ideas. They get peer pressured into believing this stuff. They go home telling their parents, you're killing, the rainforest and the polar bears with your climate change. Get rid of the SUV. And it's so unfortunate that we've created this situation where these kids now can't get jobs on these degrees that have become worthless to them because the degree has gone beyond the point of diminishing returns, where it's more expensive to get the degree than what it's worth. And I've mentioned this to my own children and told them, look, I want you to be college educated for the sake of being college educated and everything you learn. But you can learn everything there elsewhere. It's a benefit to have the degree. But if there's something you want to do that doesn't require it, I'm with it. And that's only now. They were raised saying, if you don't go to college, it's over. But I've changed my tune because I realized this is the reality so many are facing. And I don't want to put that on anybody's kids, let alone my own. Folks, coming right back to the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's go to Durango, Colorado, KBGO. Jesse, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, how are you doing?
Super.
Great. What I wanted to say was history kind of repeating itself through film, and Soylent Green was a movie that Charlton Heston put out, I think, 68 or 69. And with the cabal taking over and the police running the operations and whoever had the power or money covered it. And it was euthanasia, the pushing for that for the older folks or the ones they just wanted to get rid of, but still being healthy. And I don't know if anybody wants to, I don't want to blow the ending of it, but.
Yeah, no spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, I want to thank you for the call, and I love the reference to Soylent Green. But the interesting thing is, isn't it crazy how things that were once fiction are now becoming a reality, even if it's in the UK? And I always say if it happened in Europe, it's going to happen here eventually. You just got to give it some time. And I think it's a wake-up call to all Americans that we have to really stand firm and say, hold on, we can't do this anymore. Jesse, I appreciate the call. Godspeed to you. Let's go quickly to Jeff in Powell, Wyoming, KPAL. Jeff, go right ahead.
Hi. I was just curious, how accurate are the numbers that they throw around with the amounts of people?
With respect to the immigrants, I think that there's a lot of inaccuracy there, but I would say whatever you're seeing reported is probably on the low end of things because they're trying to cover it up. Jeff and Powell, I thank you for your call. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I am Rich Valdez, and God willing, I'll be back tomorrow.